On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, no politics, Beretta frustrates, CMP stolen guns, and the ACRO disappoints. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is episode 346 of the John 1911 podcast. Today is technically Sunday the 28th at 12:56 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so really it would be, for me, Saturday the 27th, late at night. So it's been a few days since we've done a podcast, and as we have progressed through construction and stuff through the year, my goal is to, do not only regular podcasts, but more frequent podcasts. And so we were hitting them more frequently. We're about 7 days out, I think, from the last podcast. So figured this would be a solo episode to talk about some stuff that's going on around here, John 1911, and it would be a good opportunity to not have to talk about politics. Some administrative news. I'm not the John 1911 range right now. I've been out there for the past 4 days. That's part of what I'm going to discuss. And I am in the office, and I'm using a new microphone. This is the same microphone that I'm using for the video that I've been using for testing some of the videos we've been publishing, and you'll see some more. So it's a wireless microphone, so it sounds a little bit different. I don't know if I'll be using this microphone with, like the boys for regular podcasts, but at least for right now, it's going to be fine. At least, I always have it with me because it's in the truck with all the gear, and so it's like on a tripod or boom or all that kind of stuff. So if it's terrible, let me know. I did some quick testing to listen to it. I think it's okay, as long as I keep the microphone in the right place. So where to begin? This is going to be mostly gun stuff and John 1911 stuff. So as those of you who follow our regular social media will be aware, we have started another large cement pour for another building. This building wasn't necessarily planned from the beginning. There was always a possibility this was going to have to be built. And so, with all the construction in different locations and things that are going on in Operation Evacuate Cincinnati, it's been coming for a few months. And so I was finally able to line up a new cement guy with the same cement person, same cement supplier who does the red, white, and blue American flag cement trucks. I guess it's not cement. I guess it's concrete. Somebody in social media said it's not cement. Cement is what you add to it. It's concrete. So you're right. It's concrete. So it's going to be 3 large pours. Huge pain in the ass, but we're going to do it very quickly. And that's been taking quite a bit of time. That slowed me down this week. Also, today, well, it's tomorrow. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, but most of today was dedicated dealing with guns, just low-hanging fruit guns projects in the armory. I spent the previous 2 days, I'm almost embarrassed to even say this, fixing a washing machine. So it's like, why would you listen to a gun podcast talking about washing machines? Well, we did all this construction at the John 1911 range, and we put these facilities out there. And one thing I wanted to do is I put restrooms, and there's a bedroom out there, and there's a kitchen area, and there's a washer and dryer and shower and all that. And the washer and dryer are brand new. It's some kind of GE unit. And they're fairly large. They're stackable because I didn't want to use the space. And the reason they're large is, it's outdoor recreational property. So what are you going to end up having out there all the time? It's either going to be hunting gear, winter cold weather gear. Stuff gets bloody, stuff gets dirty, maybe multiple people, two sets or 3 sets of hunting gear, cold weather gear, and, people dragging deers around or something. You need to throw it in the washer and a dryer to get it clean. So went out and bought a washer and dryer. Well, long story short, something was wrong with the washing machine, and I had bought this stuff and parked it out there for a couple months, waiting for different contractors to get caught up to do different things. And finally it gets to the point where, my country plumbing, people set up, they're finishing out the plumbing and they set up the washer and dryer, and there's a problem. And then I bought the stuff from Lowe's, and Lowe's tells me you have 48 hours to find anything wrong with any appliances, and after that you're on your own. You have to deal with the manufacturer. And it was like, oh well, that sucks. I did not expect that. And considering where the range is, like again, I'm used to being able to call someone to fix appliances, but the thing is, the range is so remote that we don't even have an address. So like, I mean, someone would have to stand out by the road and be on a phone and wave a dude down, and that's just not going to work. So I was like, well, this can't be that hard. So anyway, I spent the better part of 2 days figuring out the problem. It was a stupid problem, but because it was a stupid problem, and anyone knows anything about, like, I guess, shipping bolts in a washing machine, so these country boys had never seen this. Well, it started to be run, the thing's vibrating like crazy, the bolts get jammed in there, couldn't get them pulled out. I had to crack the unit open and cut them out. So they're not usable. So, but the machine, everything's fine, everything works, and I now feel like I can service a washing machine. I definitely can change a belt on one because it's right there while I'm working on it. So, yeah, so that took 2 days of my time. So that kind of cut into some of my gun time. Tomorrow on Sunday, which is today, we're planning on doing the beginning of a fair amount of range maintenance because we're behind on that. Things are looking pretty scruffy because we've been dealing with stuff in the barn and the construction. So tomorrow and Tuesday are dedicated, lots of bush hogging. We're going to be getting out the, what do you call that thing? The little mini bush hog that goes on the front of a tractor, getting that out. We're going to have to, do some weed whacking and just probably have to do some spraying to knock some of the stuff down, even treating for some ticks around some of the shooting areas. Some of the stuff is still a little rough, where we can't run bush hogs, where bulldozers need to come in and grade, but weeds and plants have grown up. So yeah, it's a mess. The John 1911 range is a mess, and this year it's been one of those years. So that is what we're planning on doing tomorrow. Today, let's see, a couple things. We so did the we I have I shouldn't say this, and it's really not a problem. I just think it's one of these, I don't know what you call it, like, just, sometimes certain people don't jive with each other. You never, like, a man and a woman, maybe, like, they should not date. Well, I kind of feel like with me and Berettas, like, I like them. I think they're well made. They're quality weapons. But just like every time I deal with a Beretta, there's always some goofy bullshit that goes on with these things. And so, I don't know, a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago, I don't remember when it was, AIM Surplus, I believe AIM is the sole source for this. AIM Surplus had negotiated with the Brazilian government to import, if I could have this number wrong, maybe it was 30,000 guns, or maybe it was 3,000. I don't remember. Maybe it's 13,000. It was a lot of guns. These Beretta APX striker fired pistols, and most of them, it appears, are unissued, unfired, and they're. I mean, for considering how many they have, it was like $299 for these things, and it's like, is a reference gun for that kind of price. I mean, we pay $700 for a Beretta APX. I mean, I've been aware of the APX for a long time, but part of me's like, I mean, do we need it? It's like every other striker gun, and it's like, well, $299, yeah, we'll take it. Kind of like the Terra TM9s that came into the country. It's like, yeah, we'll take them. They're so cheap. Why not? So, and there could be some peccadillos, that's my word lately, peccadillos, with this gun that maybe will enlighten us, that if we ever run across one of these guns, we'll be able to handle it. And let me tell you, buddy. So get the gun. It is literally, we've had it for a long time. First time really taking it out of a box was today. I filmed it, and it'll get published in the next few days probably. And I could not get this gun apart. And it's a striker fired. It's a chassis gun. It uses the same type of technology that the SIG P320 uses, but hopefully without all the extra spice that comes with the 320. And not that I even got to the point of taking the chassis out. I had a hell of a time just field stripping this gun. It was kind of crazy. And like you look on the internet and people are like, do this, do that, do this, do that. And I couldn't get this thing to come apart. And it's like, well, read the instructions, dummy. Well, the instructions that we have from Beretta, because they're brand new in the box, are in Portuguese. And I can fake a little Spanglish once in a while, but I can't read Portuguese. And I don't mean this instruction booklet is, you know, it's got a French section, an English section, a Portuguese section, and a German section. No, this whole book, front to back, is Portuguese. This gun is marked for Brazilian police departments, and it came with Portuguese paperwork. And, it doesn't really show anything diagram-wise on why I can't get this gun apart. I mean, it should come as no surprise. Like just drop the striker, maybe manipulate the side a little bit, slide a little bit, turn the whatever is working as the as the takedown lever or the stop for the takedown, and then pull the slide off of it. Well, it turns out this thing, all the instructions and whatever everybody has on the internet, maybe they can do this just fine. But I think the problem is this gun is so brand spanking new. It is, I mean, I don't think it's even been cycled. And I think it needs to be shot and worn in, and maybe this stuff will wear them, but I could not get this takedown lever to turn. And it took me a while to figure it out. I spent about an hour and a half trying to get this gun apart. And turns out the little takedown lever, it's kind of like the Beretta 92s. You push it in from the other side and it rotates. It's not the same. It's the same idea, but it's not the same it's not the exact same lever as a 92, but it's the same idea. The hang up on this gun is pushing the takedown lever hard enough from the opposite side to get it to rotate. And I realized it takes so much pressure that we have to basically lay on it on the corner of a workbench, and I gotta add some weight on it, then I can get it to turn. And I can see where a lot of people, it seems to be on the internet, because I had to start looking around. It seems to be that some people are having some trouble with these Beretta APX guns, because they're just a little bit different than, say, a Glock or what most people are kind of used to. But even the people that are having trouble getting these guns apart still are not having as much trouble as we're having getting these Brazilian guns apart. This thing is so tight. But once you know what to do and you can take it apart, you can do it every time. So that's all that counts. So we got the gun apart, and you kind of take a look at it on the inside. I don't quite see how the chassis comes out of the frame. I don't know if that's something we would really need to do, but I don't know. I'll look into it. But one thing that I did like looking inside the gun was it's got full length rails. And on a striker fired gun, I was real pleased to see that. A lot of companies, look, I can be a little schizophrenic on the full length rails. It depends on kind of what you're doing. Like on a 5-inch 1911, you've got all these double radial lugs, and then you've got, the full length slide, and then you've got the full length rails, and it just starts to add up to be a little bit too much. But a striker gun that locks on the hood, nothing else going on, you want to put some full length rails in there? I don't know. It might be a real good shooting gun. It feels really good. If you have felt, I'm not going to say it's like the VP9, but it's the H&K VP9, but it's definitely in a neighborhood. It's not as top heavy as I would say the Walther PPQs are, but it's probably like a Canic, but it feels like a super high quality gun. So we'll get that gun out. We'll shoot some stuff with it and get some videos. We'll have to test this microphone out on the range. And, that'll be a follow-up. So expect that video, more Beretta videos coming up in the next probably week. Another video that we've released that I have started messing with, you can tell I've had more time to deal with guns as we work through this construction, is I did a takedown video on how to disassemble the NORINCO 77B pistol. I've done a follow-up video that hasn't been released yet that'll kind of go into more of the manual of arms and peccadillos with the gun. And also, I can see some areas with this gun. This gun is a copy, not a direct copy, but this gun is a copy of the what I believe to be the current Chinese People Liberation Army service pistol. However, the PLA pistol is in not in 9x19, it's in a 7.62 by 17 caliber round. I don't know if it's bottlenecked or not, but it's a much smaller gun, and it has a less powerful round than 9mm. I would say, because I've looked at pictures, try to compare them to this 77B that we have. I would say the service pistol is probably like maybe a Walther PP. Maybe a little bit bigger, but it's it's not a huge gun, but I don't know, how big is the average Chinese soldier? I mean, again, they're all eating better. They're all getting bigger and taller. Like, we understand that. So I'm not saying that, but I mean, there's probably not a lot of 200-pound, giant, meatheads running around in the Chinese army. So when they made this 77B gun for export, they made it 9mm because that's the most common caliber around the world. And to make it 9mm, they had to just beef up the gun. So the gun's just bigger. Apparently, the overall length of the gun is 40mm bigger. The slide's bigger and heavier. But some of the stuff with the gun, as far as how it operates, that you can probably get away with, with that smaller caliber round and that smaller frame. In particular, there's a thing with the gun. If you have never seen this gun, what I'm about to describe to you is going to sound absolutely insane, but you're gonna think you misheard me. But the NORINCO 77B in the Chinese service pistol, so it kind of looks like a high point, okay? It's a piston. It's a delayed piston, delayed blowback piston gun. So it has a piston below the barrel, just like a P7 and HKP7, and it's got the manual of arms operate it, but it even has a feature. You can take your trigger finger and you can grab the front of the trigger guard, and it sits parallel to the trigger. So think of the face of a trigger, go forward and reach outside the trigger guard, the face of the outside of the trigger guard. You can pull back on the front of that trigger guard and you can cycle the entire gun from down there. So in theory, you can cycle or release the gun with your trigger finger from slide lock one-handed. Now, this probably makes sense on a smaller gun with a lighter spring and a smaller caliber. On the 77B, this is completely useless. I'm a big guy, 6'1", 240, I have large-ish hands. I wear extra large size gloves, and my hands are long. I've got longer, I'm not going to say I've got giant hands, but I have to wear bigger size gloves. And for me to reach forward my trigger finger to reach in front of the trigger guard and be able to have enough strength and even barely be able to reach it and cycle this gun all the way back, it's basically a no-go. It's neat to have the feature in the reference collection. I'm glad to have the gun, but I mean, I think this is one of those ideas that people probably see it on a gun forum and they see a diagram of it and they go, that is so cool. Why don't we have that? Because if you can't have it, you think it's better. And it's terrible. There's some other issues with the gun that I'll go on, in video you can see. But glad to have the gun. Also, what was kind of interesting was the magazines it came with one magazine, and the magazines are impossible to get a hold of. And we were able to source 5 more magazines. So we have, I think, at least 6 magazines now. I've got The gun is like new with one magazine. I have 5 more new unissued magazines in plastic that we have purchased. And it turns out, looking at the magazines that we purchased and the magazine that came with the gun, most people don't talk about this. These 77B guns from NORINCO, the mags are serial numbered to the gun just like Luger pistols. And as a matter of fact, it looks like, they're not only are the mags serial numbered to the gun, they're serial numbered. So, like, for example, our serial number on our 77B gun, I think, ends in 770. So the last 3 digits of that serial number is on the base plate of our gun, 770. Well, on the base plate there was a number 1 and there's a number 2. So I believe that in theory this gun was probably shipped from China with 2 magazines, 7701 and 7702. It didn't come with 2 magazines. And I don't think anyone's claiming that their gun came with 2 magazines. Best I can figure is the importer probably broke the mags up. Some gun dealers used to do this with Glock and, sold them separately to make more money. Now, what was interesting was when we sourced these new magazines, all these magazines are serial numbered. Some of them are, this 3-digit serial number 1 and 3-digit serial number 2. Incidentally, one of the magazines is within 3 digits of our 770 number, which, is interesting. So if you are someone who has a NORINCO 77B and you have a magazine that ends in 770, or you can look at our video, and if we have a magazine that maybe ends in your magazine, number, as long as your magazine isn't all assed up or something, we could probably do a trade for you. Just reach out, let me know, podcast@john911.com, and, we'll definitely help you out. Looking at my notes right now, I just realized that this is going to turn into the Chinese gun episode, and I did not know that was going to happen. So we have acquired another gun that's been on our long-term to-buy list for a while. And when I tell you what this gun is, you're going to be shocked. And the reason why we didn't have this gun, it's more a reflection of my age. Again, I'm 52, and these guns were not well thought of back in the day. And we, they were everywhere, and you could get them for, I don't know, $49. SKS rifles. And I remember negotiating, buying packages of guns from people. And this one in particular, here's a story. This is in the 90s. And we bought this collection. It was a small collection. This person was trying to get out of them. I don't know what his situation was. Maybe he's getting married. He was a younger person. They were his guns, but he wanted out of his guns bad. And, we didn't want all of his guns. We just, we wanted some of them, but we didn't want them all. And he kept trying to get us to buy this SKS rifle. And it was an SKS rifle. There was an SKS rifle, and then there was a 308 Spanish Mauser. And, it's like, oh, God. Back then, you got to realize, 308 Spanish Mauser, it'll blow up in your face. That's what everybody said. And SKS rifle, it's like, what do we want? We don't need this gun. I don't care about this gun. And he made an offer. He was like give him $50 and we could have them both. And it's like, fine. So, whatever. That's the last SKS I ever had. And it sat around for probably about 6 months. Didn't do anything with it. I think it even had an aftermarket stock. That was one of the things back then is everybody was buying all this cheap shit and turning these things into Mr. Potato Head, right? And I don't know, they might still. So I remember there was this, I guess I could say this. It's been almost 30 years. So yeah, it's been 30 years. So almost 30 years. So everybody has to be retired by now. So there was an old police officer who worked for Cincinnati, and he's so old that he called himself a copper. And that was a reference to the old copper badges and stuff. And he's a cop that started working in the late 60s. And he worked thirds. I used to see him all the time. We became friends. I was young, he was old. We kind of hit it off. And we'd swap war stories and stuff. And like I'd see him almost every night. And he had a son who had just gotten on with the county sheriff's office and had just graduated from made it through the sheriff's office academy. The sheriff's office in Cincinnati was large enough that they have their own academy, and Cincinnati has their own academy. A lot of smaller departments around the country, they go off to a state academy, but if you have large metropolitan departments, they usually can run their own academy. So anyway, he had a son who's going into law enforcement. At least, I mean, he had probably more than one son, but this son it literally was a brand spanking new deputy sheriff, and every deputy sheriff's got to start working at the jail, and it just sucks. I mean, they're getting paid and it's fine, but they're not working patrol. They're not working court services. They're not doing anything cool. It sucks. The jail sucks. The environment sucks. It just sucks. And, his son was into guns. I never met the son. I just was friends with his father. And so I don't remember how I got the idea, but anyway, one night over there, I ran into the old copper, and we got to talking, and I was asking him about his son, how his son was doing, and I said, "Does your son have an SKS rifle?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Well, I've got an SKS here, and I like to give it to you to give to him." And I told him the story how we got it, and I said, like where we got it from, and it should be fine. But if for some reason it comes up, in an NCIC check is not being fine, or if it gets forward traced, we know right where to go to take you if there's a problem. But it shouldn't be a problem. But we'd like him to have this gun, and that's the last SKS I've ever personally owned. So everyone around me has SKS rifles. All of you have SKS rifles. Now SKS rifles, especially now like you can't get them out of Russia, they've all gotten sky high. And it's just like, I need one of these. I keep putting them off. Some of them come into the country, they're assed up or they're whatever. Yeah, there's the Russian ones. Do I really care if it's Russian or Chinese? Again, we run a type collection, not a variant collection. We shoot the stuff. And so over at Shooter Supply, they had an SKS that's been on the wall for a couple months, and it's a Chinese SKS. I think it had one part on it that isn't matching, but it was in good shape. Even had a cleaning kit in the back, and so we have an SKS. Kind of is. Let me give you young guys some advice. I'm I haven't been a good exemplar of this year, the past 12 months, 10, 11 months, because I've been so busy with all the changes that we're making. But I'm a big believer in personal relationships. Maybe I'm not so good glad handing strangers, but when I know somebody, I know somebody, and I build relationships up with them. And so it's like I have a guy. I'm like one of those people. I have a guy. Oh, you need a phase plasma rifle in the 40 watt range? I have a guy. I don't think I have a guy. I have a guy. And so, one of the things, I've always had a really good relationship with Shooter Supply in Loveland, Ohio. It kind of was coming up to where it's time to tithe to the, it's time for the tithe. I went in there with a motivation I was going to buy something, and kind of looking around, finding something, and I was like, yeah, there's that SKS up there. So I started looking at it more closely. So now we have a Chinese SKS. I haven't shot it yet. I don't even know if we have any 3.9 ammo anywhere. The days of getting 3.9 ammo are basically gone, surplus. But so this is turning into the PLA Chicom, red Chinese gun episode. But we'll do a video on it, and I'll have to figure out how to take it apart. I haven't taken one apart in years, and document it and do all that. So again, it's not a perfect gun. It's there's some, I can't remember what it is. There's some part on it that's serialized that is not matching, and maybe it's the magazine cover that, but it's not like the Bolt or anything. But it's like, well, it's like, yeah, that's not great, but the price is good, and we need one, and I'm there to tithe, so we have an SKS. So what do you think of the SKS? Do you have one? Are they worth having? I mean, I know there's like, there's an SKS, there's paratrooper versions, and there's SKS with, that actually take AK magazines, and there's, all these, there's Russian variants and all this stuff, blade versus spike. It's like, the blade looks cool to me. I think a spike is probably more practical. I don't know if I want to be running my hand across a blade of a bayonet on the underside of a forend, but do you have do you have one? What do you think about them? Are they worth? I mean, I come from a culture that these guns were. I mean, the way some of you guys talk about Mosin Nagants, how they used to be these shit guns back in the day in the 80s, in early 90s, an SKS was like, you were trash. It was like, you got an SKS, you trash. Like, get a, at least get an AK. We're obviously not going to be talking too much about politics or Trump or, the shooting right now. As I said earlier in another episode, the facts will come out and the facts will change, and you know, people will lie and institutions will lie, and then they'll be caught, and things will kind of work themselves out. There's no reason to, like, turn this into a giant conspiracy. I mean, there's could be a conspiracy, but I call it the conspiracy of negligence. So, but the reason I'm bringing it up is the idea of, like, denial of weapons within certain areas. I ran into something locally that I have never seen before. I don't know about you guys around the country, but most of the malls in the greater Cincinnati area have functionally failed. Even if they're not closed, they're on life support. Like, there's some of them that are like these giant indoor malls, they're just collapsing. And the ones that are still even open, you know, they have, like, baby clothes and, gangbangers in there, and they have issues, or like minors, gangbanger wannabes that go in there on Friday night and Saturday night, and they start trouble and shoot up the place, or, get in fist fights because they're kids. And so, but there's one mall in Cincinnati that has done I believe it's done very well. It seems like it is. And it's by virtue of its location, because of the median income of the average person, within proximity of this mall, and also some of the stores that are there, and then the area. So it still brings in a lot of people. And so this mall is still functioning like, the glory days of what you would imagine a mall would be like. And they've had issues with some flash mobs, and they've had issues with, people showing up and acting the fool. And incidentally, I was over there at this particular mall. It's called Kenwood. And I was at that mall a number of weeks ago to buy bedding for the bed at the John 1911 range. We have a bed out there, needs sheets and needs pillows and, like, girl stuff. Like, it needs beds, like, like bed shit. So it's like, where am I going to the mall? So I go into, I guess it was like, is a Nordstrom. So anyway, I'm walking into this mall, and I end up walking. You can walk, there's anchor stores that you can walk directly into. And there's some stores that, that, face outwards, but the backside faces into the interiors of this. It's actually an indoor mall, but you can hit some of the stores from the outside. And so walking up by one of the entrances that goes into a common area, there's a sign on Kenwood Mall. I have never seen this before in real life locally. And it was a sign saying that they have gun sniffing dogs now at the mall. And look, I'm not I'm not a criminal, I'm not the problem, But I go into these malls and they have no gun sign, and it's like, well, whatever. I'm going in. It's like most you can do is ask me to leave. Hopefully you don't see my gun. Like they're not going to see my gun. Um, we're getting to the point with some of this with this technology and what they're able to do, especially like because even now in like I know casinos are employing this where they're using these cameras where they can detect different level. Basically, it's a thermal camera, but they make it sensitive enough they can detect the shape of stuff that heat off your body. So like if you take a gun, you put it on your body, it's going to radiate the heat from your body and it's going to give off heat because it's a metal object, and the outline of a gun will show up under your clothes. And so it's like, well, don't go into casinos. And then now it's not that I gamble, but now Kenwood Mall apparently has gun sniffing dogs in it. So it's like, well, I went into Nordstrom and got my blanket and whatever, and, just ran back out of the parking lot. But it's like it occurred to me that we're getting to a point where when CCW first passed in Ohio, and I can't tell you, I don't know what it was like where you're at, but CCW in Ohio was a hell of a fight. It was a hell of a fight. This fight went on for 20 or 25 years. And Republicans voted against it, Republican governors. As a matter of fact, it was a Democratic governor that didn't like guns that signed the CCW bill in Ohio. And they had all these crazy restrictions. It's like you couldn't have it concealed in your car. So you had literally you could be concealed. You're getting in your car. Your gun has to not be concealed. So it has to be on your person, but not concealed. And you have to inform, and all this kind of stuff. And then it was, well, what's the definition of controlling a car? If your car's running, you're pumping gas. Should it be concealed or should it not be concealed? Are you flashing a gun outside of your car? And I realize this is kind of a circle jerk conversation, but you got to understand kind of like the what Ohio went through with some of their CCW laws. And they cleaned a lot of this up, and it wasn't blood in the streets and all this nonsense. But it got to the point where people would, you'd go to businesses. I used to do this. They'd have the sign, be like, no CCW here. And you'd walk in and you'd drop a little card on the counter and be like, I am no longer patronizing your business. I was going to go somewhere else. Blah, 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 blah. Constitutional rights, Second Amendment, whatever, whatever, whatever. And a bunch of the signs came down, not all of them, but they became so small that you could tell these businesses really were just covering their ass. They were putting them in like subdued colors down by the ground and like these, transparent, signs that you could hardly see this thing. You'd have to go looking at it. Like you'd have to be looking at your feet to see that this UDF has a no CCW sign on it. And you'd get to the point where you're like, the most they could do is ask you to leave, and if you don't leave, you're gonna be charged trespassing. Well, I can see now we've gone from that to where a lot of places are going to get to the point. I know casinos are getting real big on the gun thing, and I guess this particular mall, because this again Kenwood Mall, gun sniffing dogs. Why would they have gun sniffing dogs there? Because they've had kids show up there. It's a high dollar mall. It attracts a high dollar clientele, and kids that don't have money or cars and need some place to go, they show up at this mall on Friday and Saturday nights, and trouble starts. And where there's trouble and there's money, people get serious about, we're going to keep these fuckers out of here. Like they're doing things like, no unchaperoned people below a certain age at a certain time. No gun this, no gun that. They've had a few robberies of some things out in the parking lot, and they're like, we can't have this. Like I remember running into a federal judge over there at Kenwood Mall. She didn't recognize me, but if I had said something, she would have. But there's a lot of money at stake. Technology's changing. We're going to go from a point where it's like, I'm a good guy. I'm not going to cause any trouble. I'm just going to come in here and do what I need to do and walk out. And no one's going to know any better. Who cares? If I get caught with a gun, which you're not, they're going to ask me to, get out. And if you don't get out, you get charged with trespass. So what are you going to, you're going to leave. Like, oh, my bad, I'm out of here. Well, now with technology, what if I'm walking through the mall going to the Apple store and some dog alerts on me, in this mall, roof, 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 I'm not bothering anybody. And it's like I get caught with a gun at Kenwood Mall and I'm not a bad guy. I mean, you got to start thinking, it's like, well, okay, well, you know, do what I did, go in through Nordstrom, whatever, go out, whatever. And then you start thinking the technology that some of these casinos are instituting since, especially the shooting that happened in Las Vegas. And, the casinos, and if you work in the casino industry, as a matter of fact, I know Kraken probably knows quite a bit about this. I need to ask him this. But, because I think he used to work in the casino industry. I don't, I'm allowed to say that or not, but, I just said it, sorry. And, I'm certain that they're using these cameras that can detect, hardware. And so what happens when you're other places where they have cameras that can detect the hardware on your body as you're going into these places? We may very quickly get into a point where you can't go into some places because you're instantly going to get nailed for having a gun on you. And it's going to be curious to see what the sociological and economic implications and political implications will be, because you're not just basically, some laws basically exist that are only enforced against bad guys. A lot of these laws, if they become super easily tripped, they start catching the good guys, and that's going to start changing behavior, and it's going to start causing ill will on both sides. And I'm curious where that's going to go. And let me just give you the ultimate example. Okay. Some of you who listen to this podcast, I guarantee, as I genuflect, I guarantee you have gone to the SHOT Show in Las Vegas. I remember when SHOT Show used to move. Sometimes it'd be in Vegas, sometimes it'd be in Tampa. It got to be so big, it started staying in Vegas. And, there's this policy. All these casinos in Las Vegas have these no gun policies. And we have seen industry professionals, the casinos have kind of zeroed in on them. They're like, hey, don't bring guns in here. And they kind of get caught because they're like, they know, you're a, you're a gun writer or whatever. You work in, like you got a gun on you. They know, and maybe you get cross with them. And they've asked people to leave some of their casinos. You could easily see a situation, say at the SHOT Show, every one of these casinos, thousands of people are getting nailed. I mean, for getting caught on the cameras, carrying guns surreptitiously because they're in town at the SHOT Show and filling up the local casinos for a trade show. Well, I mean, in theory that could happen, but in reality it would be an impossible situation. It would cause such a nightmare. So then what are they going to do? Going to turn the cameras off? I don't know. I can see this problem coming down the road, and I don't know what's going to happen. I would imagine there's going to have to be probably a little, SHOT Show may have to leave Vegas. I would have said in the past that the casinos would back off this. We'll just turn the cameras off during SHOT Show. It's like, like prostitution isn't legal. You can't see my air quotes, but prostitution isn't legal in Las Vegas, and it's not. There's no dearth of prostitutes working those hotels, and the casinos know who these girls are, and it's almost always girls. Are they going to turn? Are they going to turn a blind eye every time SHOT Show comes in town? Or maybe, there's the other theory of how this could work. And I don't know if I subscribe to this theory, but the theory was that, as America bifurcates sociologically, and I'm not talking Democrat, Republican, or urban versus rural. I don't know. I'm talking, kind of like statist versus freedom people. You're going to see there's a push by Republicans, ostensibly right now, but there's a push within certain circles for, instead of Republicans constantly trying to get, social media companies to be more freedom loving or to be more about freedom of expression or the First Amendment, maybe people should just start their own social media companies. Maybe people should start their own credit card processing companies. And maybe you're going to start to see a move where maybe there has to be another city that's going to have to be more favorable to things like the SHOT Show, where maybe SHOT Show is going to have to get smaller, and maybe SHOT Show functionally is going to have to leave Vegas. The reality is, I mean, when you start thinking about where some of this technology is going to go, we're heading towards a cliff here with some of this stuff. If everybody can know everything about everybody at all times, and when you think about that, and you're thinking about the internet. Well, I mean, if you're able to know everything about everybody walking down the street, if someone's able to, take a picture of you and go, that dude's got a gun, that dude's got an ankle gun, that dude's got a sap in his back pocket. Oh, you can't have that, or he can't be in here. It's going to be interesting to see, how maybe groups are going to self-segregate into different areas. I'm Operation Evacuate Cincinnati is exactly that. It's the politics, the economics, the intent of the people that are now becoming the dominant force within these metro power bases. It's not going to be good in the long term, and I'm getting out. So, this is kind of related, and I just was shocked to see that there are gun sniffing dogs. How close does a dog have to be? I've never dealt with a gun sniffing dog before. How close does a dog have to be to you to see if you have a gun? Is it smell the nitrites from from a foot away, or can it smell it from 10 feet away? Like, I don't know. Is it a basset hound? I don't know. Like, the practical applications of how this stuff's going to fall out, I think it's going to be interesting, to be charitable. Other interesting news in the industry. I haven't checked this lately because it's been a busy week, but we had done a story on it last week. The CMP has suspended 1911 sales, and I guess it's out of their Talladega location, but I don't think these are TSIS guns that have gone missing, because I believe the U.S. Army CID is involved in the investigation, so I believe they're Army surplus guns. But apparently there's a bunch of 1911s that have gone missing from CMP, and they're claiming that they're probably stolen or, aggressively misplaced, and there's now a reward out. I don't know how many guns. They think it might be 99 or 100, or maybe it's 110, or maybe it's 89. But, I don't know how long CMP is going to be offline, but I can't remember not that I would know, but I can't remember the last time I heard of like a big drama with the CMP and like stolen guns. But, unfortunately in the world we live in, you hate to say that, but if any of you guys shoot the CMP matches or the grand matches or the the pistol matches at Camp Perry just ended. If you're in that and you have any information that you could provide, maybe I'd love to know more about what's going on. Maybe you have some inside rumors of what they think happened, but they can't really, it's not going to be in the press releases. Drop me a note at podcast@john1911.com. Let me know if I can talk about it publicly or whether it's just off the record, but I'd be super curious to see what's going to happen with the CMP and missing guns, especially government property, because I would hate to see the federal government, decide, well, we're going to cut off the CMP from having equipment if they can't properly account for the stuff, and they use it as a way to basically another spigot that they can close to to take guns away from people. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up here. There's going to be no police blot or anything like that. I've kind of rambled on long enough. There's one thing. This is kind of a PSA I want to share. This is my opinion. This is just being gleaned from. This is my ill-informed opinion that I'm gleaning from various sources, but I've been hearing rumblings for a little while, and I want to share them with you because I feel like I have a duty to do so, because this stuff's kind of expensive, and if we wouldn't recommend it to our friends, I wouldn't want our readers to know about it either. I have gone on record as saying, well, I don't think there's anything technically wrong with the SIG P320. I don't think they have a clean handle on what that is. I mean, there's obviously some kind of problems there, or maybe they need, So I think, given the choice, we would tell people, unless you have to run a 320 or you completely love it, like, just get another striker fired gun. Wait till the M17A1 comes out. There'll be an A1. Maybe it's not the thumb safety version. Maybe it's just the 320. I don't know. But again, we don't know. But there's a problem there. Whether it's perceived or real, it's a problem. Why partake of the drama if you're just trying to go through life, be drama free? I have another one of these to add to that list. And I'm a little surprised to hear it, but I just kind of shit on the U.S. Army service pistol. The Aimpoint ACRO red dots. I have been hearing more and more and more people complaining that they're having problems with these things. These are the enclosed emitter Aimpoints. Well, they look like a mailbox. People call them the mailbox that goes on top of the gun. It's an enclosed emitter, so it's supposedly more rugged from environmental factors, or being damaged in the environment, mud or whatever. You can just wipe off the lenses on both sides, so it's enclosed. And so the first one that came out, apparently the first ACRO had terrible battery life. Like, I didn't pay that much attention to it, but it's like, ooh, terrible battery life. And then they've upgraded it, and I guess the battery life is better, but I don't think you can say it's, this thing will run for years. But, so there's a version 2. Well, even the version 2 ACRO, I think it's called the ACRO P2, right? Is there, like, there's a version 2 of the P2? There's been enough of these red dots. They won't hold zero. The glass is failing. There's just issues I keep from, like, people that don't know each other keep talking about these damn things. And it's like, I thought an Aimpoint red dot was supposed to be the bee's knees. I mean, the micro, the H1 and the T1, like, good Lord, Aimpoint? Well, I guess making a red dot that can survive on a pistol, especially fully enclosed, is a lot harder than you would think. So I'm hearing reports of people, of organizations buying, 40 or 50 of these things and having a dozen of them having to go back. Like, statistically, that is a horrendous fail rate. And for the kind of money that you got to spend. So it's like, like right now, if you were to ask me, like, hey, I got a guy that wants to sell me an ACRO, I guess it's a P2 or whatever. They'd sell me an ACRO. They'd be like, what are you using it for? How much is he asking? If it's full retail, if you're getting paid money to carry this gun or this red dot, and it really's got to count because it's on the record, piece of equipment, we would steer you away from it. That's kind of where we're at the ACRO. So I just wanted to pass that along. So hopefully this rambling of my gun content isn't, too out of spec. I just, we'll do an episode with Danny and politics here in the next couple days, because there's a lot to talk about. So, well, this wraps up episode 346 of the John 1911 podcast. If you want to see any more stories or pictures or links of any guns we discussed, please go to the website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good night.